My brother to protect myself, but watching him cut me out of his life completely is worse than any punishment I could imagine. The last time my brother looked at me, he looked at me the way you look at someone you've never met. No anger. No hurt. No recognition. Just, nothing. Like I was a stranger standing in a checkout line who happened to have a face he used to know. And the worst part? I earned that look. I earned every second of that emptiness. Because 9 months ago, I did something so unforgivable that I can barely get through this without my hands shaking, but I need to say it out loud. I need someone to hear this, even if it's strangers on the internet, because the people who used to listen to me, my family, my brother, my own mother, they don't anymore. And they shouldn't. I stole from my mother and blamed my brother for it. I'm going to say that again, because I need you to understand the kind of person I am before you read any further. I took $14,000 from my mother's savings account, money she had set aside over 11 years for her retirement, and when she found out it was missing, I looked her in the eyes and told her Eli did it. Eli. My older brother. The one person on this planet who would have walked through fire for me without even asking why. I pointed the finger at him, and I watched the light leave my mother's face, and I said nothing. I let the lie sit there like a grenade with the pin already pulled, and I walked away and told myself I had no other choice. That was 9 months ago. I haven't heard Eli's voice in 7 of them. I don't even know where to start explaining how I got here, so I'll start with what matters, the kind of brother Eli was to me before I destroyed everything. Eli is 4 years older than me. Growing up, that gap felt enormous. He was always taller, always stronger, always 3 steps ahead in every way that mattered. But he never made me feel small. Not once. When I was 7 and got lost at the county fair, it wasn't my parents who found me. It was Eli. He'd gone running through the crowd barefoot because he'd kicked off his shoes to move faster, and when he found me crying behind a funnel cake stand, he didn't say I told you not to wander off. He just picked me up, put me on his shoulders, and said, "You're okay. I got you." That was Eli. That was always Eli. When I was 15 and got caught shoplifting a pair of headphones from a Best Buy, Eli drove 40 minutes to pick me up from the security office before our parents found out. He paid for the headphones out of his own pocket. He didn't lecture me. He just looked at me in the car and said, "You're better than that." Don't make me wrong. When I was 19 and flunking out of my second semester of college because I was too depressed to get out of bed, Eli was the one who showed up at my dorm with groceries and sat on my floor for 3 hours until I talked to him. He helped me find a therapist. He co-signed my lease when I moved off campus because my credit was trashed and our parents had stopped helping. He never asked for anything back. Not the money. Not the time. Not even a thank you. And I repaid all of that, every single moment of loyalty, every sacrifice, every time he chose me over his own comfort, by making him the villain in a lie I built to save myself. Here's how it happened. I wish I could tell you there was some dramatic, complicated series of events. There wasn't. The truth is ugly and simple. I'd been living beyond my means for almost 2 years. Credit cards. A car payment I couldn't afford. Rounds of drinks I bought for people who wouldn't remember my name the next morning. I wasn't gambling. I wasn't on drugs. I was just reckless and stupid and so desperate to feel like I had my life together that I kept spending money I didn't have to maintain an image nobody was even paying attention to. By last spring, I was drowning. I owed almost $23,000 across 4 credit cards, my car was about to be repossessed, and I'd already borrowed $3,000 from a coworker that I had no way of paying back. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat without feeling like I was going to throw up. I'd sit in my car in the parking lot of my apartment complex and stare at my banking app like the numbers were going to magically change. They never did. I knew my mom had money saved. She'd mentioned it over the years, this retirement account she'd been slowly building since my dad left. It wasn't a fortune. It was maybe $40,000 total. But she talked about it the way other people talk about their kids' futures. It was her proof that she'd survived. That she'd made it. That all those years of double shifts at the hospital and skipping vacations and buying store brand everything had meant something. I told myself I'd only take a little. Just enough to cover my minimum payments and keep my car. I told myself I'd pay it back before she even noticed. I had access to her account because she'd added me years ago in case of emergencies, a decision she made because she trusted me, because Eli had suggested it, because they both believed I was responsible enough to have that access. The first transfer was $2,000. I moved it on a Wednesday afternoon while I was on my lunch break, sitting in a Panera Bread, and I remember my hands were so sweaty that I almost dropped my phone. My heart was pounding. I felt sick. But I did it. And then I waited for the sky to fall, and it didn't, and that was the most dangerous thing that could have happened. Because the sky not falling made it feel like it was okay. Like the money wasn't real. Like it was just numbers on a screen. The second transfer was $3,500, 2 weeks later. The third was $4,000. The fourth was $4,500. Each one got easier. Each one came with a shorter wave of guilt and a longer stretch of relief. I was making payments. I was keeping my car. I was still going out on weekends and posting pictures and looking like the version of myself I wanted everyone to see. And somewhere in the back of my mind, buried under all the justifications and rationalizations and I'll fix this later promises, I knew I was stealing from my mother. I knew it. I just couldn't let myself feel it because feeling it would mean I had to stop, and stopping meant my entire life would collapse. $14,000. That's how much I took before she noticed. She called me on a Saturday morning. I remember because I was still in bed, hungover, scrolling through Instagram. Her voice sounded strange, not angry, just confused. She said she'd gone to check her account because she was thinking about booking a trip, something she'd never done before, a cruise with her friend Denise. She said the balance didn't look right. She said she was probably reading it wrong. She asked me to log in and check. I sat up in bed and felt every single nerve in my body catch fire. I pulled up the account. I saw what she saw. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could have told the truth. I could have said, "Mom, I took it. I'm in trouble. I'm sorry. I'll find a way to pay it back." I could have been honest for the first time in months. I could have been the person Eli always believed I was. Instead, I said, "That's weird. Have you asked Eli?" 4 words. That's all it took. 4 words and a pause that lasted just long enough for her to fill the silence with her own fear. "Why would Eli?" she started. "I don't know," I said. "I'm just saying, he's the only other person with access, right? Maybe he needed it for something and forgot to mention it." I could hear her breathing change. I could hear the exact moment doubt crept in. And I should have stopped. I should have laughed and said I was kidding, said let me look into it, said anything other than what I said next. But the lie had already started moving, and I was too terrified to stand in front of it. "He's been kind of stressed lately, right?" I said. "With the apartment and everything?" That was true. Eli had mentioned a few weeks earlier that his rent was going up and he was thinking about finding a new place. It was nothing, just the normal stress of being alive in an expensive city. But I handed it to my mother like evidence. Like a motive. Like a reason to believe the unbelievable. And she believed me. Not right away. Not completely. But enough. Enough to call Eli and ask him about it in a voice that already carried suspicion. Enough to start a conversation that never should have happened. Enough to set a fire that I could not put out. Eli called me 2 hours later, confused. "Did Mom just accuse me of taking money from her account?" he asked. He almost sounded like he was laughing. Like it was so absurd that it had to be a misunderstanding. "She said you told her I might have done it?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't expected her to tell him what I said. I thought she'd just ask him vaguely, and he'd deny it, and it would become this unsolved mystery that everyone eventually forgot about. I hadn't thought it through. I hadn't thought about anything beyond the next 5 minutes of my own survival. "I didn't say that," I told him. My voice was steady. "I don't know how. I just said maybe she should check with everyone who has access. She probably jumped to conclusions." "That's only me and you," Eli said. "Quiet now." "I know. I'm sure it's a bank error or something. I'll help her figure it out." He paused. And in that pause, I could hear something shifting. Not suspicion, not yet. Just the faintest crack in something solid. Like he was registering, for the first time, that the ground beneath him might not be as stable as he'd always assumed. "Yeah," he said. "Okay. Let me know." Over the next 2 weeks, the lie metastasized. My mother started checking Eli's story against timelines. She noticed that the transfers happened on weekdays, during hours when Eli would have been at work. She called me again, and each time I added another layer. "I don't want to believe it either," I told her once. "But something doesn't add up," I said. Things like, "Maybe he's embarrassed and doesn't want to admit it," I said. "Maybe we should give him a chance to come clean before we push too hard." Every sentence was designed to sound compassionate while driving the knife deeper. I was terrified every second of every day. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus at work. I started having panic attacks in the shower, pressing my forehead against the tile and trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. But I couldn't stop. The lie had become load-bearing. If I pulled it out, everything would collapse on top of me, my mother's trust, my relationship with Eli, my own image of myself as someone who wasn't capable of something this terrible. So I kept building. I kept adding rooms to a house made of smoke. My mom confronted Eli at a family dinner. I was there. I sat at the table and watched. She didn't yell. That's the thing people don't understand about my mother, she doesn't yell. She gets quiet. She gets precise. She asked Eli, in front of our aunt and our cousin Janelle, if he had anything he wanted to tell her about her savings account. Eli's face. I will never forget Eli's face. It went through confusion, then hurt, then disbelief, then something I'd never seen on him before, a kind of resigned devastation, like he was watching someone he loved choose not to believe him and realizing there was nothing he could do about it. "Mom," he said. "I didn't take your money." "Then where did it go?" she asked. "I don't know. But it wasn't me." She looked at me. I felt every pair of eyes in the room land on my skin like cigarette burns. And I did the thing I will hate myself for until the day I die. I looked down at my plate and said nothing. Silence. That was my contribution. Silence that screamed louder than any accusation. Silence that said, I won't defend him. Silence that my mother read as confirmation. Silence that Eli read as betrayal. He pushed his chair back. He stood up slowly. He looked at me, not at my mother, not at our aunt, not at Janelle. At me. And his eyes weren't angry. They weren't sad. They were searching. Like he was looking for the brother he knew, the one he'd carried on his shoulders at the county fair, the one he'd driven 40 minutes to save from a Best Buy security office. He was looking for me. And I wasn't there. All right, he said. Just that. All right. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. He walked to the front door. He didn't slam it. He closed it with a soft click, the way you close a door when you know you're not coming back. Nobody said anything for almost a full minute. My aunt started clearing dishes. Janelle stared at the table. My mother pressed her lips together and nodded once, like a verdict had been delivered. I sat there with a forkful of food I would never eat and a heart that had finally started to understand what it had done. The silence in that room after the door clicked shut, it didn't feel like peace. It didn't feel like resolution. It felt like the exact sound trust makes when it dies. And I sat in it, drowning, realizing for the first time that this silence hurt more than any scream ever could. Eli didn't block me right away. That's the part that haunts me the most, if I'm honest. Because it means he waited. It means that even after that dinner, even after I sat there like a coward and let my silence convict him, some part of him was still holding the door open. Some part of him was still waiting for me to call and say, I need to tell you something. He gave me a window. A grace period I didn't deserve. And I wasted it the way I wasted everything else, by pretending it wasn't happening. For 3 days after that dinner, my phone was quiet. No texts from Eli. No calls. No memes sent at 1 a.m. like he used to do, random nonsense that would make me laugh the next morning. Just silence. But his number was still there. His contact photo, the two of us at a Braves game 2 summers ago, both sunburned and grinning, still stared back at me every time I scrolled past it. He hadn't blocked me. He was waiting. And I did nothing. On the 4th day, I woke up and checked my phone the way I'd been checking it obsessively since the dinner, equal parts dread and desperate hope, and his contact was gone. Not the number. The photo. The name showed up as just a number now. No display picture. No custom name. I opened our text thread, and the last message was from the week before the dinner, him sending me a link to a YouTube video about some guy restoring a vintage motorcycle, with the caption, "This is gonna be us one day." I'd hearted it. That little red heart sat at the bottom of the thread like a monument to a version of me that no longer existed. I tried calling. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. On the 3rd try, it didn't ring at all. Straight to voicemail. He'd blocked me. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone pressed against my ear, listening to his voicemail greeting, "Hey, it's Eli, leave a message and I'll hit you back," and something inside my chest caved in. Not cracked. Not fractured. Caved. Like a building that had been condemned for months and finally gave up pretending it could stand. I didn't cry. I wanted to. I think I needed to. But the tears wouldn't come because some part of me knew I didn't have the right. You don't get to cry over something you built with your own hands and then burned down on purpose. The next few weeks were a slow-motion demolition of every relationship I'd ever taken for granted. My cousin Janelle was the first. She'd been at that dinner. She'd seen Eli's face. She'd watched me sit there in silence. About a week after Eli blocked me, Janelle posted a photo on Instagram, her and Eli at a coffee shop, laughing about something. The caption was just a heart emoji. No context. No explanation needed. It was a declaration of loyalty so quiet and so absolute that it hit me harder than any angry paragraph ever could have. I checked Eli's profile. He'd posted for the first time in weeks, a picture of a hiking trail, no caption, just a location tag. The comments were full of people saying things like "proud of you, bro," and "looking good, king." My aunt had commented a string of heart emojis. My mother had liked it. My mother had liked it. I stared at that tiny thumbprint of approval for so long that my screen dimmed. She'd liked his photo. She was still connected to him. Which meant, and this is where the real unraveling began, something had shifted. Something I wasn't part of. Some conversation had happened, some piece of information had surfaced, and the ground was moving under me again. It was a Tuesday when my mother called and asked me to come over. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that sits on top of something terrible, like a sheet over a body. I almost didn't go. I almost made up an excuse about work or traffic or not feeling well. But I went, because not going would be an admission, and I was still, even then, stupid enough to think I could hold the lie together if I just kept showing up. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. No food. No coffee. Just her, sitting with her hands folded and a manila envelope in front of her. She didn't look up right away. That's when I knew. "Sit down," she said. I sat. She opened the envelope and pulled out printed bank statements. Highlighted. Annotated. Every single transfer I'd made, with dates and times circled in red ink. Next to each one, she'd written where Eli had been at that exact moment, at work, verified by his time clock records. At a doctor's appointment, confirmed by the office. At a friend's birthday dinner 2 states away, with photos to prove it. Eli hadn't done this. Eli hadn't built this case. My mother had. On her own. Because eventually the math didn't add up, and my mother was nothing if not precise, and she'd spent 3 weeks quietly pulling records and cross-referencing dates and dismantling my lie brick by brick until there was nothing left but the ugly, naked truth. She looked up at me. And I swear to you, I have never seen an expression like the one on her face. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disappointment. It was grief. She was grieving me. Like I died and the person sitting across from her was just someone wearing my face. Was it you? She asked. She already knew. She was giving me one last chance to say it myself. I opened my mouth. I closed it. I opened it again. And the word that came out was so small, so pathetic, so completely insufficient for the weight of what it carried, that it barely made a sound. Yes. She nodded. One nod. Slow. Like she was absorbing a blow she'd already braced for. $14,000, she said. Not a question. I was going to pay it back, I said. The most useless sentence in the history of language. You let me blame your brother, she said. And that was the one that broke her. Not the money. Not the theft. The fact that I had used Eli, her firstborn, the son who had never given her a single reason to doubt him, as a shield. She pressed her hand over her mouth and closed her eyes, and a sound came out of her that I will hear in every quiet room for the rest of my life. Not a sob. Not a cry. A moan. Low and guttural and ancient. The sound of a mother realizing that one of her children is capable of cruelty she never imagined. She didn't kick me out. She didn't scream. She said, I need you to leave now, and I left, and when I got to my car, I threw up in the parking lot of her apartment complex, hands on my knees, bile burning the back of my throat, and I thought, this is what it feels like when everything you've been running from finally catches you. I tried to call Eli. Still blocked. I tried texting from a different number. The message went through, but there was no response. I wrote a long, desperate, rambling apology, must have been 1,000 words, and sent it to his email. No response. I sent another one the next day. And the next. And the next. 4 emails in 4 days, each one more unhinged than the last, each one saying some version of I'm sorry, please, I know I don't deserve it, but please. On the 5th day, I got a response. 1 line. Don't contact me again. 5 words. No greeting. No closing. No punctuation except a period that hit like a gavel. I read it so many times that the letters stopped looking like letters and started looking like shapes. Meaningless shapes that meant everything. I obeyed. Not because I wanted to. Because even I, in all my selfishness, understood that continuing to reach out wasn't about making Eli feel better. It was about making me feel better. And I had lost the right to use him for my comfort. The family fallout was systematic. My aunt called me once, to say she was disgusted. She didn't raise her voice. She said, what you did to your brother is something I will never understand, and I want you to know that I will not be speaking to you until I can look at you without feeling sick. Then she hung up. I haven't heard from her since. Janelle unfollowed me on everything. Not unfriended, unfollowed. The distinction mattered. She was keeping the connection visible while making sure she'd never have to see my face on her feed. It was surgical. It was the social media equivalent of leaving someone's photo on the wall but turning it to face the wall. Family gatherings continued without me. I know because I saw them. Thanksgiving. My mother posted a photo of the table, 6 place settings. There used to be 7. The food was the same. The plates were the same. The only thing missing was me, and from the smiles in that photo, nobody seemed to notice the absence. Or worse, they noticed and they were relieved. Christmas was the one that nearly killed me. Janelle posted a video, 10 seconds, maybe 15, of everyone opening gifts. I saw my mother laughing. I saw my aunt pouring wine. I saw Eli sitting on the couch with a Santa hat on, looking relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. And I realized something that felt like swallowing broken glass. They were healing. They were moving on. The wound I'd created was closing, and it was closing by pushing me out, the way a body expels a splinter. I was the infection. Removing me was the cure. I watched that video 11 times. I counted. I started therapy in January. Not because I wanted to fix things, by then I'd accepted that some things can't be fixed, but because I was starting to scare myself. I wasn't eating. I'd lost almost 20 pounds. I was calling in sick to work so often that my manager pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay, and I almost told her everything right there in the break room, just unloaded the entire ugly story on a woman I barely knew, because I was so desperate to confess to anyone who would listen. My therapist is a quiet woman named Dr. Reese who has a way of letting silence do the work. In our 3rd session, she asked me a question that I think about every day. When you blamed Eli, she said, were you trying to protect yourself from consequences, or were you trying to protect your image of yourself? I didn't answer. I still haven't. Because the honest answer is both, and the honest answer is that those two things might be the same thing, and the honest answer is that I sacrificed the most important relationship in my life so that I could keep pretending I was someone I'm not. Spring came. I started a payment plan with my mother, automatic transfers, $400 a month, which means it'll take me almost 3 years to pay her back. She accepts the money. She doesn't accept my calls. We communicate through texts that read like business transactions. Transfer received. Okay. That's it. That's the entirety of my relationship with my mother now. 2 words a month. I saw Eli once, by accident, in April. At a Target. He was in the checkout line with a cart full of stuff, looked like he was setting up a new apartment. I was 3 lines over and I saw him before he saw me, and my entire body went cold. I just stood there, holding a bottle of laundry detergent, watching him load his things onto the belt, and I thought about walking over. I thought about saying his name. I thought about what his face would look like if he turned and saw me standing there. He turned. He saw me. And here's the part that I will carry with me until I die: he didn't react. He didn't flinch. He didn't glare. He didn't look away. He looked at me the way you look at a stranger. Blank. Neutral. The way you look at someone who holds no space in your life whatsoever. Then he turned back to the cashier and kept unloading his cart. I am not his brother anymore. I am no one to him. I am a stranger with a familiar face, and the familiarity means nothing because he's already filed me away in whatever category you put people in when they've proven they'll hurt you to save themselves. I left the store without buying anything. I sat in my car for 45 minutes. That time, I cried. Some nights, I scroll through our old text messages. I know I shouldn't. Dr. Reese has told me it's self-punishment disguised as nostalgia. She's right. But I do it anyway, sitting in the dark with the screen brightness turned low, reading through years of conversations that read like a record of a relationship that was real and good and built on something solid. Inside jokes I can't remember the origins of. Plans we made that we actually followed through on. A text from Eli at 2 a.m. that just says love you bro. Don't forget that I'd responded to with a thumbs up emoji because I was half asleep and didn't know it was the most important text anyone would ever send me. I want to message him. Every day. I draft texts I never send. I hope you're doing well. Delete. I miss you. Delete. I'm sorry. Delete. What's the point? What could I possibly say that would undo what I did? Sorry doesn't rebuild a bridge you burned while someone was still standing on it. Sorry doesn't unaccuse. Sorry doesn't give back the months he spent wondering why his own mother looked at him differently, why family dinners felt like interrogations, why the brother he'd spent his whole life protecting had let him twist in the wind for a lie. There's this thing that happens when you betray someone, and no one talks about it. You don't just lose them. You lose every version of yourself that existed in their eyes. Eli saw me as someone worth saving. Someone worth driving 40 minutes for. Someone worth co-signing a lease for. Someone worth sending a 2 a.m. love you to. And now I'm the person who stole from his mother and let him take the blame. That's it. That's the final draft. Every good memory we had is now filtered through the lens of what I did, and there's no way to unfilter it. I am the villain in every story told about me now. When my name comes up at family gatherings I'm no longer invited to, it's not followed by laughter or warmth. It's followed by silence, or a head shake, or a let's not talk about that. I am the cautionary tale. The one people reference when they talk about trust. Look what happened with, and then my name, spoken the way you say the name of a disease. I deserve it. I know I deserve it. That's not performative guilt, it's the truth, plain and ugly. I made a choice. Not one choice, dozens of choices, over weeks, each one worse than the last, each one another shovel of dirt on the grave of my brother's trust. I had 100 chances to stop, and I didn't take a single one, and now I live in the world I created. It's quiet here. Not peaceful. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that sits in your chest and presses down on your lungs at 3 a.m. when you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about a door that closed with a soft click on a Tuesday night and hasn't opened since. I used to have a brother who loved me without conditions. Now I have a payment plan, a therapist, and a voicemail greeting I'll never hear again because the number it belongs to no longer knows my name. And every time I close my eyes, I see him at the checkout line in Target, turning to look at me with the emptiest eyes I've ever seen, not with hatred, not with pain, but with nothing. Absolutely nothing. That nothing is where I live now.